conflict with that schedule. So community-based drug rehabilitation program, a primary care framework perspective. So um, during the past few years, we've been hearing arguments about the treatment of addiction, and as you know, we have also dealt addiction in lifestyle medicine because we perceive drug addiction as part of our as a behavioral problem, and one of the issues with regards to one of the problematic issue or problematic aspect of drug addiction is the inability to cope up with stress, no? So if someone we've learned in medicine, we've learned in lifestyle medicine that if someone is under stress or is having behavioral issues like um, some may mga behavioral issues na to, mental disorders, they would often self-medicate. And one of the things that they would self-medicate is taking alcohol to suppress their emotions or undesirable emotions. Like if you were anxious, you would take sedatives or alcohol to suppress that anxiety that you don't really want to feel. Or if you have any issues with your mind, like you're being bothered with trauma in the past, some people would take medicines that would suppress these thoughts, no? And one of them is drug use. So if you will be asking me if we can stop drugs, unfortunately my answer is no, we cannot stop drug some because drug is somewhat a an approach, no, for some people who cannot really address who cannot really somewhat provide a long-term solution for their problems. Some people would rather take short-term or shortcut in order to address their problems. That's why we have alcohols, we have cigarettes proliferating, and now we have vapes proliferating because some people are dealing their problems in a different way. Well, although some of us would deal our problems in a systematic manner, in as much as possible, we deal with our problems. We try to solve our problems cognitively, but some people cannot take it. So some people will have a hard time trying to solve their problems by through thinking, no? Some people would rather do it the shorter way. Mo na na shortcut. Shortcut to indulgement, and shortcut to yung si tawag ani, a shorter way to reward yourself or a shorter way to suppress your emotions would be some of these substances. So, in other words, we cannot really stop drugs, but it is important to recognize some people who have problems with drug issue or who are having drug issues. As physicians in the future, what will you do if someone goes to your clinic and tell you, I'm having a problem, doc. I'm having a problem and I'm doing drug use. So you learn in lifestyle medicine that drug using is a coping strategy or coping mechanism. We've learned that in lifestyle medicine that people who are triggered would indulge drug use, 'di ba? Triggers, 'di ba? We have an activity. If you did not forget the activity we have to identify the triggers because if we could identify the triggers, we could prevent our drug use, 'di ba? If we could address our triggers, we could avoid that triggering factor. Thus, there will be no drug use. Gets mo? So that's the learning objective that we have in lifestyle medicine. So when you advise someone who is into drugs, we have to identify the underlying factors that made that person resort into drugs. Here in preventive medicine, as a physician in a community, what would be, or yeah, we put or we contextualize our management of drug use in the community or in the preventive perspective. We will learn that, we will learn the different preventive approach through or through a primary care approach or through a primary care framework. How do we address people who are into drugs? Of course, we identify people, no? We will identify people. If this people or if this patient coming into our clinic one day, if this person is at risk, or we have to identify if this person is already addicted to or not yet addicted. So kung at risk lang, there's a chance that this person will take. If the person is already taking the substance, um, there's a way or there's an assessment for us physicians in the future, you guys, there's a way for you to assess the degree of severity of the problem, the degree or the severity of the problem. Okay, so we have terms like mild, moderate, severe. No, that's why we have an assessment form. So today we are contextualizing, or we put our management or drug rehabilitation management in a primary care network. So unsa may mga primary care network nato, we have community level. When you will be assigned in the doctor to the barrio, when you will be hired as a municipal health officer, or when you will have your clinic. How will you address this problem from getting worse? Mao jud na ang perspective nato, mao jud na atong when we think of primary care perspective, we don't want it to get worsened. So mild pa ni. So we don't want it to complicate. Kung for example, a patient comes to your clinic hypertension, of course you just don't prescribe losartan, amlodipine. You also tell the patient to do lifestyle modification because it will be an armamentarium or add-on to treatment. You just don't prescribe medications, 'di ba? And we have to assess patients. You do PE and history if this patient is at risk for diabetes, at risk for heart failure, before referring them to our friendly cardiologist, 'di ba? So at your level as primary care doctor, once you graduate and once you after taking the board, of course, these are the um, basic requirement for us to be able to, treat and somehow counsel a patient. So we would like to contextualize that. Put yourself in a clinic, in a position wherein you are having a patient in your clinic who is at risk for drug use. So unsaon mi nako, how will we address this? Ingon ingnon adtog psychiatrist. So as a primary care doctor or as a doctor who will practice medicine or general medicine someday, if even if you're an IM, even if you go to pediatrics, even if you go to OB-GYN, how will we approach a certain patient? Or abugon ba nato, ay di lang ko mo manage nimo because I'm not a specialist in drugs. I'm not a drug addiction specialist. I will refer you to a psychiatrist. Remember, there is a stigma with drug addiction. A lot of people think that drug addiction is a psychiatric disorder. No, it is not a psychiatric disorder. Ay kung na kung niinom ra kag alcohol, psychiatric na ka. Of course, you are taking drugs because you are compelled to do so, or you were coerced to do so because of a certain underlying issue, which we have learned in lifestyle medicine na trigger. Now, after addressing the trigger in lifestyle medicine and the patient is still at risk for drug use, what will we do? Okay. So this is the outline. We will define addiction again, drug addiction, clinical diagnosis and assessment. So here, our basis for the clinical diagnosis and assessment of addiction or drug dependence is the ICD-10 or the DSM-5 criteria. So psychiatric. So they diagnose drug addiction under the psychiatric disorder spectrum. Ingon ka, Dok, dili siya psychiatric. Oh, dili siya psychiatric. Pero remember, we screen people if you are psychiatric already or not. So way of addressing or telling if the person is already having substance disorder is through the DSM, or Diagnostic Statistical Manual 5th edition. Okay. Identify the different phases of addiction. So we will be able to know when to refer our patients. I think I have already incorporated this in your lifestyle, no? But we'll be reviewing them again. Screening for risk. So we have also tackled this in lifestyle medicine. We have different screening tools for us to determine if the patient is at risk for substance addiction. No, principles of treatment. The principles of treatment was not thoroughly discussed, so we'll have an emphasis on the principles of treatment, especially community-based treatment. And if diba, if you have a patient who is having dengue, our way of monitoring the dengue status of the patient is the CBC, or the platelet count. Where in addiction, our way of telling if the patient is already in remission, but pasabot ana, naayo na siya, or controlled na yung addiction, is the stages of change. So that's our parameter, stages of change model. And our management with drug addiction has a different school of thoughts. Some people think that addiction is a psychiatric problem, so they manage them medically. So we refer them to psychiatrists if they are having psychiatric symptoms already. Other people would manage addiction as a spiritual. That's why we also enroll them or refer them to pastoral, no, pastoral counseling, or spiritual counseling for that matter, because other people would also believe in that way. We also have drug addiction being managed through family therapy, especially here if you have a family who is which who a family who is problematic because of the presence of addiction. So we refer them to family therapy under psychology. Some people would also manage addiction medically if the patient presents with medical problem. Daghan kay mga medical problem with regards to addiction. So I guess we should not frame addiction as a specialty or a field only dedicated under psychiatry or from addiction specialists, because there are a lot of aspects or recovery continuum. Mo na gitawag nato, if the addiction problem is due to a complicated factors, it's caused by different factors. So management of addiction would also entail complicated approach, or shall we say interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary. But pasabot ana, if the person is addict because he was compelled to sell drugs, kay wa siya laing panginabuhi, there is no job available for that person, then we refer them to social works. If that person is illiterate and there's no other job for that person, then we refer them to the education sector, 'di ba? Ana siya ang pag-manage, no? If the patient has problematic issues with family or with the spouse, then we refer them to family counseling. If the patient presents with psychiatric symptoms, then we refer them to psychiatrists. If the patient presents with medical problem, then we refer them to specialists as well. So, in other words, we case manage, no? So we will be talking about case management later on. So allow me to present. Kita na mo sa slides. So that's the outline. Okay. In the year 2000, the addiction term is no longer used, but we can interchangeably interact na when we say addiction, alam na natin, kabaw na ta what's the meaning of addiction, but we're trying to avoid addiction when we're talking to our patients, we're talking to family, because most of them are in denial. Dili adik akong anak. That's the most common. That's the most common alibi that I hear from parents, no? When I see patients in the rehabilitation, dili man na siya addict, doc. Mugamit lang. Oh, what's the difference? So we'll talk about what's the difference between a user and an addict later on. So the better approach, or the more formal or a formal approach of telling someone or conversing someone who is not part of our field is drug dependence. It's more acceptable politically, no? Or if you would utilize a more colloquially, publicly, politically acceptable term, we use the word PWOD or PWID, no? People who use drugs or people who inject drugs. So careful with the word addict. Kay madahang tao masakitan, no? Dahang tao ma-hurt. You get hurt, especially when you are being tagged as an addict, dali kita ma-hurt, no? We're not addicts, no? So the correct term is medical term is drug dependence. It is also known as addiction. It is a chronic, progressive, relapsing condition. So there are three characteristics of drug addiction or drug dependence, where there is compulsion, loss of control, and continued use despite adverse reactions or despite adverse consequences. I have also shared with you this in lifestyle medicine that your drug dependence is characterized by three important entities: compulsion, loss of control, and continued use despite adverse consequences. When we say adverse consequences, the patient or the person is aware that he is experiencing some symptoms or adverse signs and symptoms, adverse reaction from drug use, but despite knowing that he's already having these symptoms, he's still using drugs. That's continued use despite having adverse consequences. If he or the person is aware that he has killed someone, or he has robbed someone, or as he has hurt his family, and with this knowledge he still continue using these drugs, then that qualifies him as a drug dependent. Okay. So let's go to the neurobiology. Let's go to the physiologic aspect of drug use. So these are the different drugs and the different properties of your drugs, no? For example, opiates, they are agonists to the mu receptors, delta receptors, and kappa and opioid receptors. So remember, we have a natural opioid receptors in our body. That is why we are prone to becoming addicted to opiates because we have opioid receptors. Cocaine, they're more targeted to dopamine receptors. Of course, our brain is filled with dopamine receptors because this is our way to feel the rewarding effect of if we are so happy or we are so elated, no? If you had your first experience a very memorable a very memorable event in your life that you cannot really forget it, that is because your dopamine has been elicited, or your dopamine has been stimulated. So your cocaine also stimulates your dopamine release. Amphetamine also acts the same way with cocaine, but in a longer manner. So dugay. That is why amphetamine is somewhat common in the Philippines compared to your cocaine, because cocaine has shorter effect and more expensive, but lesser adverse reaction. Compared to amphetamine has longer effect, cheaper, but has more adverse reaction. Like the downside, the munang gingon nato ni tugpa na sa Bisaya ni tugpa. When you have your withdrawals, you have more withdrawals with your amphetamine compared to cocaine. That is why di na ako musulti, some people can still manage, think properly, even if they have withdrawn from cocaine compared to amphetamines. Namoy familiar kanang mga ngiwi-ngiwi diha. Pero I don't know ha. I don't know if he's really taking cocaine. May probably our president has been in the past, but I don't know if I don't have any way to determine if he's really still taking cocaine. That's why he should subject himself for follicles testing, not urine testing. Okay, so we have ethanol. No, ethanol facilitates the GABA A and inhibits the NMDA glutamate receptor function. In other words, it slows down the parasympathetic. So it inhibits stimulation. The opposite of your stimulant is your GABA A. Stimulation, so suppression. So the ethanol facilitates your GABA A. So in other words, you get suppressed. That's why you get sleepy after taking ethanol, and then someone accuse you of rape, accuse you of raping her or him, and then you tell the judges na I don't know, I did not remember because I was under the influence of ethanol. That's true. If you're under the influence of ethanol, you cannot do anything. But if you have a slight intake of ethanol, of course, it will facilitate, it will dep it will suppress your inhibition. If you have the urge, no, if you have the urge to rape someone, if you have the urge or to do something, your ethanol for quite for a certain concentration, your inhibition level is suppressed. So you can do anything what you want. But in a higher dose, since it facilitates the GABA, it suppresses your sympathetic. It also suppress your action, so you cannot do anything. You will just sleep if you have a higher dose. If you manage to rape someone, if you have managed to kill someone or hurt someone, maybe you're under the influence of alcohol, but you're not yet intoxicated. Once you're intoxicated, you cannot do anything. So nicotine, this is a stimulant, but since uh, it also acts on the parasympathetic, so it somehow balances your sympathetic and parasympathetic. Mura siya relaxation, but your mind is alert. That's the beauty of your nicotine. Beauty, Jud, no? I'm not urging you to take nicotine or vape, huh? Because the effect of your nicotine is hazardous to your vascular system. It increases your heart heartbeat, heart function, and blood pressure. So it's just like doing exercise actually in a bad way. Of course, cannabinoids. There is a certain receptor specific for cannabinoids. Your cannabinoid 1 and cannabinoid 2 receptors, or in other words, you can still be addicted to the substance because of the presence of the gene that codes for the receptor. However, this is not common in Filipinos. Weird kayo because this is the only gene that is not common among Filipinos. That's why we're not really fond of cannabinoid. We always shift from cannabis. People would always shift to stimulants. Other reason for this is our cultural factor because we Filipinos are into production. But pasabot ana we are working people. We don't want to do siesta all the time. So we want to stimulate ourselves because that's part of our culture. Kung ingnon kag tapulan, 'di ba? Masakitan ta. So that's why we want to work. If someone tell or your mother tells you, "Oh, you're lazy," we get easily hurt. That's why we don't want to be lazy. That's why we take stimulant. Kay kung mag-cannabinoid ka, you're more likely to become lazy. You're just sleeping and laughing all the time, no? So we're not like that in culturally. So somewhat your culture, Filipino culture has an influence why we do not take Filipinos are not fond of cannabis or Mary Jane or marijuana. We're more likely stimulant. We more likely prefer stimulants. And your pencyclidine, which is an antagonist, and NMDA glutamate receptor. In other words, it has the same function with your ethanol. That is why katong mga dili ka afford og kanang tanduay 5, pobre na jud kayo sa mga bukid-bukid, they would they would pick out the yellow bell. The yellow bell. Are you familiar with yellow bell or yeah, it's a yellow bell. It's a kind of flower, and then they would boil it, and then they would mix it with alcohol to maximize the effect of alcohol. kanang nagtipid og alcohol nga walay lain mahurot na niya labi pa ni si kuan na sila sa ilang barkada palainom kaayo. So nagtipid sila og alcohol, ilang sagulan og phencyclidine from the yellow bell, okay? Namoy familiar na may ni-react. So mga bukid-bukid na, ha? Okay, hallucinogens, of course, hallucinogen like your ketamine, no? Ketamine, it's an anesthetic drugs, no? Ketamine, it's an anesthetic drugs. Some people would take hallucinogens. It's a partial agonist, acts on the 5-HT2A receptor. And of course, your rugby is an inhalant. Rugby as an inhalant, it has the same effect with your hallucinogen, hallucinating. Okay. So on the right side, you can see the two different colors. We have here the dopamine pathways and the serotonin pathways. So remember, the dopamine is involved with reward function. That's why if your stimulants are very famous in the Philippines because a lot of Filipinos are having hard time coping up with the stress, daily stresses in life, and we want to feel rewarded right away. We want to get the shortcut to our reward. So we want to feel that. We want to feel that rewarding feeling, no? That's why a lot of Filipinos are into amphetamine, no? Because it targets the dopamine pathway. Whereas your serotonin, its function is for the mood, memory, processing, sleep, cognition. It's more being targeted by your ethanol, by your um, nicotine, especially nicotine, no? Nicotine, ma-relax kay ko dok basta makasigarilyo, makalibang kay ko. O, di ba? Na uban, they won't, if they're having constipation problem, they would, uh, they would, uh, it would be addressed by taking nicotine because it relaxes you. Okay. So the underlying reason I have already presented this in your lifestyle med. This is the underlying reason, no? Why would people utilize this substance abuse? And in the lifestyle medicine, it's really important to look at this determinant because this might be the triggering factor. But as a PCM student, it is important to look at these determinants because this is where our program would revolve or would evolve. Our programs would revolve. So when we case manage our patient, unsa man siya problema nganong what's the real problem? Why people would utilize drugs? Why would a patient relapse when they go back to their families? And if we could only see the underlying problems or the underlying culprit, we could develop programs that would prevent this patient uh, from from relapse. No, no. Okay. Now, so we have community, family, school factor, o 'di ba? School of Medicine is the source of drugs. So probably we have to change the curriculum of the School of Medicine to make it favorable for the student not to take the drugs, not to take drugs. Or if your peer, 'di ba? In kisay may barkada aning Rashid, kung if your friends or barkada are drug user, there's a big chance that you would utilize drugs later on. Family, if you have a brother, father who is drug use, there's a big tendency that you will also resort to drugs. Mo na gitawag na to nagrebelde. Si Papa mangani, di ba na pa sila alibay. My father is also a drug user. That's why I would also use drugs. Community problem, if you have violence in the community, if you have presence of drug in the community. So these are the things that we would look at when we develop our primary care program in the community or in your clinic in the future. So how will you advise, no? So you are at risk of of taking drugs. So what's the trigger? Oh, these are your determinants. So what are the different strategies that we can do to address these determinants? For example, ang problem is, naganta mo example, ang problem is community problem. Imo din pahunungon imong anak o paskwela, nga naman sa community ang problem. It's not in the school. So we have our strategies in managing or preventing someone in taking drugs would be to address the determinants, no? Address the determinants. Okay. So we have diagnostic terms. I have already mentioned this. So substance use is different from substance abuse. When we say substance use, a patient who is taking substance in order to relieve the suffering. For example, if you have intrusive thoughts, sig balik-balik ang hunahuna na kapila na ko nahagbong og microbiology. O, di ba? Sig kahagbong microbiology. That's why you take alcohol every time, every after the examination, because it will it will resolve your intrusive thoughts, your undesirable thoughts about microbiology. Mag-ulang mong examination, ay di last ang second year dito. Or if you have a certain subject. So you would take the substance in order to alleviate your suffering or alleviate your thoughts about or to forget something about. So that's substance use. It becomes substance abuse when you are no you when you're not having any symptoms, but you're still taking the substance, 'di ba? There's a big difference between the two. One, you are suffering from something. So you have your justification. Ni-justify ka, "Oh, I have to take alcohol, doc, because I cannot sleep because I have past issues with my ex-girlfriend who is bothering my mind." So, 'di ba? Kanta day kag multo, by cup of joe, ni samot. So, it's trying to haunt you, that experience, and you want to forget that. So you're taking the substance. But when when you have no symptoms at all and you prefer the substance, there could be something else. So that's substance abuse. Okay. So let's go to the different criteria. This is from the DSM. So this is the most important part of the lecture. You should know how to diagnose if a person is having substance dependence or not. So we use the three important entities that I mentioned earlier. Um, which is the presence of compulsion, the presence of harmful use despite the presence of use or continued use despite harmful consequences, nadiri, harmful use, and the cravings. These are the important or the increasing amount. So increasing amount or regularity is also a criteria. So this is from the adopted from the 1952 DSM, the American Psychiatric Association, no? DSM, or the Manual of the Mental Disorder, or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder. How come, doc, there are DSM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Of course, through time, um, our mental disorder or our psychiatric disorders has been updated, or we have continuous update with psychiatric disorder. Before, there was no term as stress. There was no term as burnout. Now we are having terms with burnout and stress, and it's part of their spectrum of mental disorder. But you're not considered mentally ill. Okay? So we have um, diversified and we have adopted new terms and new terminologies that may not necessarily um, diagnose a person as having a psychiatric disorder. Okay? So what's the difference between this DSM-4, DOC, and 5? Actually, in DSM-4, as far as I could remember, DSM-4, unsa man to DSM-4? DSM-4, they remove, they remove caffeine as a substance disorder. So, caffeine overdose or caffeine addiction is not anymore a disorder. Okay? They remove caffeine. And also, they have changed the substance dependence diagnosis, no? Basta gi-change na substance dependence diagnosis. Okay. So these are the DSM-5 substance-related disorder. As you can see here, remove caffeine, no? Caffeine is addictive, but not anymore a disorder. Alcohol, these are your addictive substances, but caffeine is not a disorder. Okay? You cannot You cannot kill someone if you're addicted to caffeine. Makapatay di kag tao if you addict na kag caffeine, dili masiguro. Okay? So they remove it. So here is the stage, recalling your lifestyle medication, no? We have different stages of addiction. One is what triggers someone from taking the substance? Preoccupation, anticipation. Then, if that person is continuously triggered, no? Continuously triggered, they indulge. Lami man kay inom og alcohol, "Uy lagot kay ko, lami kay inom alcohol." Kana nagpangita na ka gauga na imong throat kay gusto na jud ka moinom alcohol. Okay, you indulge yourself. And then, nainom kag mga usa ka case nga kuan, Red Horse. And then, the next day, sige kag suka. Nagmahay ka. You had regrets why you took a large amount of alcohol. Now you're vomiting so hard. So that's withdrawal, the negative effect. And then you tell yourself, di na jud ko moinom. Ilara imong o, di ba? Negative effect. Di na ko moinom. Tried to convince you that di na ka moinom kay nagsige ka suka. And then you're well again and you had that preoccupation again and then you started drinking again. So that's the addiction cycle. So are we guilty of this? Di na jud ko mukaon. Gamay na lang, usa ka sangyup na lang, 'di ba? Christmas bitaw, last na lang ni. In January mag New Year's resolution ako. So we are all guilty about of the stages of addiction. So let's go to the different entities, no, or criteria for substance use disorder. There are actually three. We have impaired control. So let's categorize the three criteria, no? We have impaired control. The next one is social impairment, and the third one is risky use of the substance. And the fourth one is a pharmacological criteria. However, this is optional. Whether your pharmacological criteria or not, or whether you include your pharmacological criteria, you can or you don't include the pharmacological criteria, you can still diagnose a person as having substance use disorder. The importance of these four criteria or three criteria in general, we have three criteria, and the fourth one here is pharmacological, but this is optional. The importance of these different criteria is that we can identify the severity. Oh, mura po siya kanang scoring approach, scoring sa IM, no? Kanang Jones criteria, 'di ba? The higher the criteria, the more likely that the patient is having this condition. So, the higher the score in with the use of this criteria, the higher the severity. That's our interpretation. So let's go to the first criteria, which is impaired control. So remember in our exam, we have impaired control, social impairment, and impulse or risky behavior. And the fourth one is pharmaceutical or pharmacological criteria, but that's optional because we can still diagnose substance use disorder without it. Why? Okay. Number one, I will try to explain it thoroughly. No, number one, or the first four criteria, impaired control. Criterion one, the individual may take the substance in larger amount. So how will you ask this one? Is the patient, so you have to determine the history of the patient. When did you start taking the substance? At the age of 20 years old, I have started taking the substance. Okay. Have you tried taking the substance together with friends? Yes, though. So imagine if that patient has taken the substance together with friends, how many friends do you have back then? When I was 20 years old, doc, I have I started taking the substance together with four other friends. So imagine one sachet. How many sachets? One sachet lang, doc. One sachet together with four friends, so that's divide five. So imagine the amount being divided by five people. And now, um, are you still taking the same amount or the substance together with friends? No, I'm taking it alone. So imagine the progressions of substance use from one sachet divided by four, five, and then here comes the patient who has progressed. He's taking his substance intake by taking the whole package by himself, by taking the whole packet by himself. Though that's an indication that the patient has already increased his substance use. Di ba? Criterion nun, pasar na. One na. So, the presence of one qualifies the patient to substance use disorder. Okay? Okay, one raman sa substance use ra ka. The presence of two or three qualifies the patient as mild dependence. You have a substance use disorder with mild dependence. That's your severity. So let's go to criterion 2. The individual may express desire. If you are listening to PCM3, do you space out like lami lagi ka ikaon ron no? Papuya ning doktor maminaw eh. Lami ka ikaog Jollibee, lami ka ikaon. Are you spacing out? How will you ask that patient? How will you ask the patient? While taking the substance, while taking shabu or marijuana or cocaine, do you had do you had do you had an episode wherein you tried cutting down? Nakatry kag stop? Yes, doc. Pila ka months? 2 weeks ra. And then you went back. So you had difficulty in cutting it down. You went back because you had the desire to cut it. You have the desire or you had the preoccupation now. Addiction cycle. Nakahunong naman ta kog inom oy, nakahunong naman ta ko I have stopped taking alcohol, nibalik jud ko. So that's criterion 2. So sulod na ka sa mild disorder. Criterion 3. The individual may spend greater time. So how will you ask this? Do you have a child? Or now in my patient, do you have a child? Kanang yes doc, pila may edad? I cannot remember. I'll try to remember their age doc. But I really miss them. Nganong na-miss man nimo sila? Why did the patient miss them? Because there is already isolation. The patient has been isolated from his family and he has been taking the substance he's been dealing with the substance rather than spending it with his family. That's criterion 3, right? Especially kung wala na siya kita siyang anak and he misses them so much and he loves to especially when I have a patient nga moingon nila when I get discharged doc I will really I'm looking forward to see my patient because I really miss them so much. Karon na nimo sila na miss katong napakasgawas wala. Okay? So I don't tell that to my patient no. Okay, pero that's an idea already. That's a sign that the patient has been taking more time dealing with the substance rather than spending it with his family. That's criterion 3. Criterion 4, cravings manifested by an intense desire. So it's just like criterion 4. However, what qualifies criterion 4? Intense desire. Ma'am, nakapamaligya kag butang gamit cellphone sa inyong balay tungod lang para makapalit kag shabu? Yes, doc. Criterion 4. Or nakapangawat. Oh. Or nakapang hold up because of the intense desire to buy the substance. Ang patients ana when I interview them, nakapangawat manggod ko doc para nakoy ikahatag so that I can give something to my family. Yes, bulsahon pa ko. But actually, why would they do such horrible things in order to give them to their family? So is that an ethical thing to do? Of course not. They did it because there is already a need. There's already a need for them to get the drugs. So that's criterion 4. It's same thing with criterion 2, but there is a desire. But in criterion 2, you did not successfully cut it down. In criterion 4, you did a horrible thing in order to get it. Okay? So that's impaired control. 4 pa lang, moderate na ka. What more if you're positive or if you turn out also positive with the second set of criterion, which is social impairment. Remember, the first 4 criterion is more on the desire, the wanting to take the substance. Bahala na magkinaunsa. I want to take the substance. Bahala na ma-destroy akong family. Bahala na I could kill or I could rob someone just to get the drugs. Spending more time with the drugs, taking the drugs in a larger amount, increasing the intake of the drugs. This falls under impaired control. So drugs, more on drug use, drug behavior towards drug use. So remember that one. 5, 6, 7, it's more on social impairment. Your obligation, you stop schooling, you're not working anymore, you just work, you just stayed at home. I remember, no, my patient, I have interviewed a lot of patients who used to be call center agent, who used to go to school, but had been delinquent. Pila naman kaka-years nag-college dong, 6 years, 7 years in college, sige undang-undang because of drug use. Delinquency. Recurrent drug use despite obligations in work, school, and home. Kung dili na mohatag sa balay, so that's social. You know, being a breadwinner is not anymore true for someone who is addicted to drugs. So the mother has to replace the breadwinner of the family. So the mother or the wife has to deal a lot of problems in the families. Ang drug user is sometimes in denial about this, no? In denial. Criterion 6. Substance use despite having persistent, recurrent social interpersonal problem. Family, family problems. So, sig-away. Family conflict. The right term is family conflict. Nagbuwag sa asawa. Are you still with your wife? No, Dok, gipalayo siya sa ako. That's a red flag. Gipalayo sa imuha, meaning there is a family conflict here. Are you still living with your children? No, Dok, gipalayo sa ako, gibawi sa father. Yeah, balihon pag storya, no? Like the mother hide their children from the father or from the substance dependent person or PWOD. So that's a red flag, no? Criterion 7. Social, occupational, recreational activities has been given up. I will always ask this to patients like, in the past, katong wala pa kagagamit, do you like go with your parents for outing, going to church? These are your regular social interactions, but it is now impaired with your drug, or it has now stopped or usually discontinued with drug use. Oh, sa una, Dok, manimba jud mi together. Sa una, mag-picnic jud mi. Sa una, sige lang sa una. Kana, mga red flags yun na nako. So the regular hobbies or the regular family activities has been disrupted. So these are your red flags. This is part of your social impairment category. Okay? Now let's go to, so kung naka more than 6 ka na sa criterion pa lang, criterion 1 and 2, severe na ka. How much more if you have criterion 3? Criterion or third criterion would be risky use of the substance. Like, I will ask them, have you been in the drug den? Or have you been to someone else's home taking the substance? Yes, doc. Are you aware that you could be arrested by the police? Yes, doc. I'm aware, but swerte lang, wala ma-arrest. Swerte lang. Swerte-swerte lang daw. That's another red flag. Swerte lang daw. So aware sila. There is a risk. They are so much aware that they could be arrested, they could be tukhang, pero they're still using it, no? So that's risky behavior. You know that it's risky to take the substance. You know that there's a law prohibiting us from taking the substance. You know that there's a law or a tukhang, but you still used it because nagtuo ka, you think that you can get away with it or swerte-swerte lang. That's criterion 8. Criterion 9. The individual substance use despite having persistent psychological. Kani kasaga I have elicited some people, like a few people, about kanang mga severe na jud forms, no. Um you have been admitted. I have a patient who has been admitted, and then I have asked him, "Nganong na gisulod man ka diri? Nganong gipasulod man ka sa rehab?" "Dok, akong gisunog among balay." Kana criterion 9. Gisunog niya iyang balay. Nganong gisunog man imong balay? "Bulong dok, bulong, bulong. Na may sige hunghong nako nga sunugon ang balay." That's criteria 9. Meaning you have psychiatric and psychological issues. So you have a induced disorder. You have a psychological or psychiatric induced disorder induced by the substance. Okay? Criterion 10 and 11 is optional, but you can still include this one. Criterion 10 is tolerance. Mark increased dose. Oh, this is somewhat similar with criterion 1, increasing dose. But what's the difference between increasing dose and increasing tolerance? Here, you have already a reduced effect. That's the key word, reduced effect. Meaning, dili na ka matamaan og usa ka sachet, duha ka sachet na jud. That's increasing tolerance. And do you have withdrawal symptoms? The most common withdrawal symptom of drug use is hypersomnolence. I have a patient who slept for 48 hours without eating, without taking food, or without taking um, water. 48 hours siyang tulog after a high dose of methamphetamine. So that's hypersomnolence. What do you do after taking the substance? Matug raman ko, Dok. How many hours? Usually, Dok, taas-taas jud, malate na ko sa work or di na ko kaskwela, na overslept na. So that's criterion 11. But that's still optional, no? But if you think that the patient is already having the symptoms, then this qualifies them as having pharmaceutical issues with the substance. So those are the 3 to 4 criterias. So our examination would fall on those examples that I've mentioned. So just remember that you have impaired controls or more likely take the characteristic and the behavior of taking the substance. And then we have criteria 2, social impairment, more on family dynamics, more on family conflict, more on unsa tawag ani, more on their obligations. And criterion 3, risky use, risky behaviors. Okay. Now let's go to intervention. So for milder forms of substance use under the 11 criteria, we have the community-based drug rehabilitation program. If the patient falls under the moderate severity, then we have to do outpatient program. If the patient is severe, then the patient should be admitted in a rehabilitation program. Admit jud. There's no way of letting the patient stop his drug use but to admit the patient. Okay. So we have another diagnosis, substance induced disorder. This is quite familiar. If the patient has symptoms of intoxication, withdrawal after taking the substance, or having psychiatric symptoms, and then it improved after the patient has been um, sa tawag ni, detoxified, nawala na siyang system ang substance, okay na siya, tarong na siya. So that could be substance-induced disorder. Nakapatay, nabuang, nagsalimuang, in Bisaya, or having psychiatric or mental symptoms when the patient is under the influence of drug, then that is substance-induced disorder. So if the patient is not taking the drug, he is normal. Substance intoxication when the patient is taking severe levels of the substance, severe concentrations, which might be deleterious to health and which might kill the substance and which might kill the person. So the patient aside manifests some behavioral and psychiatric changes. However, the worst scenario here is intoxication of the central nervous system. No, intoxication of the central nervous system, like kanang nag-seizure na, or the patient passed off, na-pass out, nakuyapan after uska case of beer, nakuyapan. So it suppressed the central nervous system. That's substance intoxication. So it's a medical condition. It's not merely general medical condition. We have to take other accounts here, no? Nakuyapan, na-pass out, or nag-arrhythmia, like for example, cocaine or shabu, you are prone to arrhythmia, or MDMA, or like your ecstasy, you are prone to sudden cardiac arrest. That's intoxication. And the years pass here in Cebu. We have a patient here who took during Labapalooza ba to, or during Sinulog, who took four tablets of ecstasy. She passed out and died. Yeah. We have withdrawals. So withdrawals are the undesirable effects when the substance level has abruptly decreased. Paspas kay nawala sa imong system. You have taken a large amount and then it suddenly dropped off. Example of this is your kuan stimulants. No stimulants. So once you experience a sudden drop of that concentrations of that stimulant, you can have withdrawal symptoms. Beer can also have withdrawal symptoms, but however, remember in pharmacology, beer, kinsa may pharmacology here. 'Di ba beer has a first past effect wherein the concentration of beer to become inactivated in the liver to by your alcohol dehydrogenase is equal to the amount. So the activation of beer is equal to the rate of the activation of your beer by your alcohol dehydrogenase is equal to the product being produced. But pasabot ana, bisag unsa pa kataas imong beer, the metabolism of beer is still the same. Kasi Kajimo, the metabolism of beer inactivation is still the same. The product is still the same. Mo nang dali kay ka mahubog if you have low level of alcohol dehydrogenase, because even if you have take a large substance of your beer, the rate of metabolism does not increase. Does not increase. No? Okay. So dali kay ka mahubog because the alcohol level in your blood shoots up because the metabolic rate is still the same. It will not increase even if you take a large amount of beer. Unlike other substances like stimulants, the amount is high, the metabolism is also increased. So you can have a sudden withdrawal symptoms with your stimulants compared to your beers or compared to other substances. So this is just a good to know, but the most important thing is for us to utilize the DSM-5 criteria. But for the purpose of diagnosing your substance use disorder under the psychiatric disorder spectrum, we can utilize this. However, we're using this DI. We're using the ICD-10 for billing purposes na lang. International billing, international coding, no? Your international statistical classification of disease for coding purposes and for billing purposes. But still the same, the purpose of the utilization of your ICD under the psychiatric disorder spectrum is to diagnose if a person has a disorder or not. So the most common approach for us to diagnose substance use disorder is DSM-5. Remember DSM-5. Here, if you notice, no, it's more specific. Mental behavioral disorder in the due to alcohol. It's more specific. We have to identify the culprit nganong na kay mental disorder, na kay mental behavioral problem. But remember, it takes a severe form. It takes a severe level or severe or higher severity for us to develop mental and behavioral problem. So dili siya gamit, di ba? What if that patient is under moderate criteria or under mild criteria? So we cannot really admit the patient. Here, Manggod, your basis for admitting the patient if the patient has mental and behavioral disorder related to the substance. So this is an old way of diagnosing the patient. Okay, let's go to codependency. In a simpler term, codependency is the enabling character. Dok, dili man na adik akong anak. So in other words, this is the family members' reaction, or this is the family members' um, denial pattern, behavioral pattern that their family member is not, or is not an addict, or shall we say enabling character. Dok, nabuhat raman to niya, Dok. Oh, daghan kay ko nakit-an codependent nga mga family member sa media. Kanang mga nagsilagi hilak-hilak kay ilang anak namatay sa tukhang, o ilang relatives namatay sa tukhang. Although politically there's a something correct because they're calling for justice for the EGK, no? Yes, that's politically, yeah, justifiable, but politically they're being used political. That's for political propaganda. But the underlying reason for it during the past, when you were when your patient, when your son was alive, what did you do in order to stop him from taking the substance? Wala. Kay dili man to siya addict, Dok. That's an enabling character, codependency. So that's a simpler term for that. Or, Doc, I have a patient, a mother. Doc, i-admit siya akong anak. Pwede dili lang i-admit. 'Di ba? Pero based on your assessment, the patient is severe, pwede outpatient lang, Doc, or sa amo na lang barangay, community-based. Oh, are you going to change your diagnosis? So ethically, are you going to do that? Because you think that the patient's family um, should decide for that matter. Of course, they can decide, but you should abide with your assessment, not the family's request. No, as a doctor, you will be in a position. Kung makakita kay iyan sa clinic, you will be put in a position to admit the patient or not based on the family's request. Ang uban, i-admit na lang na siya, Dok. Ano i-admit man nga di man siya mild, ay di man siya severe. I-admit because they don't want any they don't want any problem at home. Ano man nakaproblema man, kay ilang anak, nakapangawat. So their son has stole something from their neighbor, and they think it's an embarrassment over the family, so that's why they want to hide their family members. So that's another enabling character. Okay. So the phases of addiction, as I have discussed this in your lifestyle medicine, is from abstinence to dependence. And we have different spectrum. When we say spectrum, you have different types of person who are drug users. You have a person who use drugs because for socializing purposes. There are persons who use drug because they're self-medicating. There are persons who use drug because they're already problematic about it. They're having problems about it. So we have different types of person who use drugs. Dili tanan addict. Not everyone who uses drugs are addict. That is why it is important to do assessment, thorough assessment, to know to determine kung kaya pa ba at our level to manage this person, these people who have tried, who are actual casual users or who are chronic users already. We have patients who are chronic users who are still functioning in the BPO. And some even have been schooling, di ba? Nagyapon tayong mga chronic drug users but or who are still functional. So if they're still functional, should they be admitted in a rehabilitation center, or should they be in a outpatient rehabilitation center or community-based drug rehabilitation center? Okay. So screening, I have mentioned this in screening. We have your alcohol screening, alcohol smoking, substance involvement screening tests. This was adopted by the WHO in 1997. It aims to identify if the person is at risk pa, high risk or wala, high risk. So what our diagnosis here is no risk, mild, moderate, severe risks. you are at risk of becoming a substance abuser or a substance dependent. Because screening lang. The problem with screening is the patient can always deny. No, no, they always answer no, 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 no. So the the outcome of your screening test would be mild or low or no risk at all. That's the problem with the screening test. So it is very subjective. It takes time. It takes time for the interviewer to properly screen, or shall we say, there's an art how to ask a particular questions, no? Some particular questions. So there's at risk for you to be negative, no? Okay. So our result here would be low, moderate, high, or no risk at all. So this is just a screening, not an assessment. What's the difference between assessment and screening? Assessment is knowing the severity of drug use. Screening is looking into the likelihood that a patient is dependent or not. Likelihood, if dependent or not. Okay? So what are the principles? When you screen the patient and when you have diagnosed the patient using your assessment. So remember, kung assessment, DSM-5. Kung screening, and our example would be assist. So it might count out in the exam. Assessment gani, we want to know the severity. So DSM-5. Kabaw na tang drug user siya, we just want to know the severity of drug use because our management depends on the severity of the patient. Gets? Whereas screening, you will just screen the person if there is a likelihood that the patient is at risk to become an addict or a substance dependent. Okay? So let's go to the principle. So when we have assessed our patient, what is our principle? Why should we treat the patient? Remember the cycle of addiction, a behavior that keeps on coming back. Muinom ko, nagmahay ko, muinom na pod ko. So it's a vicious cycle. Muinom, muinom, stop, use, cycle. That's the pattern of drug use. So we have to stop the cycle. So how are we going to stop the cycle? We have to apply the principles of substance use treatment. So what are the principles? We have availability. The treatment program should be available and accessible. Screening, should a patient should undergo screening, assessment, diagnosis, and treatment planning or case management. Evidence-informed treatment, meaning to say, papirmahon og consent form ang patient o ang family that the patient should be admitted, that the patient should undergo treatment. Dependence treatment, human rights, and patient dignity. When we treat a patient, admit the patient in a humane program, humanistic, preserving the rights of the patient or patient's dignity. So we also targeted special groups, no subgroups. So if the patient is LGBT, do not mix the patient in a prison. Do not mix in a patient for all males. Do not mix a woman in all male patient rehab. So there should be a specific treatment program for this subgroup of population. And then we have dependence treatment and the criminal justice system. So if the patient has any criminal issues, we have to have a subpoena. We have to go to the court and tell the judge or tell the court that the patient should be admitted. Community involvement, participation, and patient orientation. So this time, the patient should be integrated, no, slowly integrated back in the community. Like for example, if the patient has been admitted for 4 months to 6 months, are you going to allow the patient to see his parent or to see his family for that matter? So we have a rule in the rehabilitation program. Sometimes we utilize family visit as a reward. If you have a good behavior in the rehabilitation program, you can see your daughter or you can speak with your parents. That's the family reward system. So it is a form of carrot and stick, retraining the behavior that you can get the reward if you have inputted or if you have shown a good behavior. That's rewiring the brain actually. Clinical governance of dependence. For example, if the patient has TB, AIDS, di i-treat po nimo yang HIV, i-treat po nimo yang TB. Dili nimo siya pasagdaan lang. Treatment system, you should have a policy, strategic planning, and coordination. In other words, you should have a good case management plan or case management. So drug rehabilitation is a program looking at the aftercare, follow-up treatment directed to physical. So I've mentioned that detoxification is a physical aspect. Withdrawing the substance in the patient's body is physical. Having exercise is also letting the patient exercise is a way of detoxifying the body from the substance. Emotional, because we want to address the triggers, diba? Psychological, vocational. If the patient does not have any work, then we give them work. If the patient does not know how to write, then we educate them. Social and spiritual also is incorporated. In other words, drug rehabilitation is a holistic approach in addressing all the different aspects, no, factors that might influence the patient to recovery. And these factors could be the reason why the patient has been using the drugs in the first place. So the aim of the rehabilitation is to restore the optimal health of the patient by incorporating medical, psychological, social, and spiritual means. Detoxification is the first step, usually the first step medical treatment wherein we detoxify the patient. We can utilize medications that will decrease the level of the drugs in the body. We can also do physical approach, exercising to decrease the level of the substance in the body. Or we can also give diet to the patient, diet modification, or give symptomatic relief. What if the patient have arrhythmia? Nag-arrhythmia or nag-delirium tremens due to alcoholism or nag-arrhythmia due to methamphetamine and cocaine, then we give antiarrhythmic drugs. Mm. So that's medical management. So under the Republic Act 9165, the Comprehensive Dangers Act of 2002, it aims to oversee the drug rehabilitation program in the country. So this is the theoretical framework of substance abuse management in a primary care setting. So if you're the patient, if you're the doctor in a community or if you have a clinic, it is important for us to screen. Screening sa nimo, Doc, I have been taking alcohol for the past few weeks. Be screen ta ka, I will screen you. I will use assist. If you are at risk of becoming an addict to alcohol or you are at risk of substance use disorder, alcohol. And then after screening, you tell the patient, you're not at risk. Your risk is low. Because your risk is low, we'll identify what are the things that causes you to take the substance. So lifestyle modification, lifestyle medicine, looking at the triggers. Okay? Because when we look at the triggers, we could be able to find the solutions that will prevent the patient from getting triggered. And then we can refer the patient to the appropriate service. Dali kay ka ma-trigger because naay intrusive thoughts in your mind. I would like to refer you to a psychologist so that you have a cognitive behavioral therapy. Oh, that's it. You have been taking nicotine for the past 5 years, and your BP is high already. Nicotine can increase your BP. Would you want me to give you losartan, or would you want to stop nicotine first? Then let's see if your BP goes down before taking losartan because it might be the reason why your BP is high because of your nicotine intake. That's another way of managing it at your level, or at the level of the or at the primary level, 'di ba? So we screen, we treat, and we prevent. So here is a more detailed approach, but this is similar to this one. It is just that we had a specific pathway, algorithm. Is the patient at risk? No, there's no risk, or that risk is very low. So we just advise. Is the patient has mild risk, moderate risk, or severe risk? So the specific arrow tells you what to do with the patient. I'll just leave you that way, but you study this slide because we might have an exam to determine if the most appropriate treatment for the patient at risk. Now, what is the screening tool here? Your assist. Now, for the patients with moderate, if you notice the slide here, for moderate and severe forms, we have to refer. So actually, this screening tool was utilized, was employed so that any healthcare worker or any trained healthcare worker, whether you're a nurse or a paramedical, can also administer this test. It's not necessarily done by a doctor. Now, once we see that the patient is in moderate is in mod is a moderate in moderate or severe, then we have to refer this to the doctor, psychiatrist, or an addiction specialist. But still, advise the patient like screening, or I mean, treat treat the patient, refer the patient. Kung moderate and severe. Okay? So just like this one, but it is now converted to an algorithm. So it's more like a traffic it's converted to a traffic approach wherein we could identify what or where the patient should go once we identify them or once we diagnose them. So in other words, this is a screening test. Your DSM-5 is an assessment. So for patients with moderate and severe, they should undergo DSM-5 to determine their severity. Remember that, to determine the severity. For the purpose of this lecture, we will concentrate on community-based treatment rehab. So what do we have here? If the patient is mild, the patient the can undergo the community-based treatment and rehabilitation program. So at the community level, what do we have here? We have case management, psychoeducation, advocacy, mo na kuan sila kanang mga liga sa barangay, kanang cleaning, community clean up drive, ka-notice mo na sa mga barangay ninyo. That's their advocacy. We have also substance use, psychological or substance use behavioral intervention. We can refer them to a psychologist, or if you can manage this one, primary care level, if you are confident, then you can do behavioral intervention. Or enroll the patient to a counseling group or cognitive behavioral therapy group, education and support, relapse prevention. So as doctors, where should we go? Where is our level here? What is our mandate here? Education, medical counseling, or psychoeducation, and even case management because it is in our hands. How do we refer our patients? No? That's our basic mandate. If you're confident with behavioral intervention, why not, di ba? If you're trained to do so. So why is P Wood, CBDRP good for P Wood? Because we're not going to remove the patient from his family, but we integrate the community approach in managing patients who are manageable in the community. In other words, mura ning mga level nga ubusipon lang, you don't need to be admitted in the rehabilitation. So manageable in the community. And the purpose of the community, because incorporated here, why we emphasize community, because in the community we can find all the resources needed for the community, for the patient to be rehabilitated, for the patient to get well. Okay, so read on this. I will not take This slide's long. So let's go back to the principles of community-based treatment. Why do we need to treat the patient? To treat the milder forms of patient, milder substance use disorder, mild forms in the community. Because of this pyramid, self-care. If the patient time, is having a hard time managing himself with drug use, the family and the community is there. Mama moingon, "Oh, asa naman pud ka?" 'Di ba? Your mother would tell you, "Asa naman pud ka?" Then the patient can find self-efficacy. They don't want to be rehabilitated because they're afraid in the rehabilitation center, and they can manage their thoughts, they can manage their behavior. Kaya ra man jud nako, dok. It so happened that naa lang jud sige invite nako nga classmate. I can do it, doc. It so happened that my barkada is always inviting me to use drugs. So you integrate the patient back in the community and you let the parents or you let the community people, the people at home to guard the patient. Kaya ingon man siya, kaya ra niya. So let's go back to the principle of community-based treatment. There's no wrong door. If the patient tells you, Doc, kaya ra nako i-manage ang akong problem sa drug. Yes, it's your life. I don't want to dictate you. So here comes the counseling doctor, not the dictator doctor. Imna, di ba? The usual doctor will tell you, imna ni, take this, take that. But if you are a counseling doctor, you let the patient manage himself, and the doctor here becomes the guide and the coach. Okay, ingon ka, kaya nimo. So let's try that, but don't be pessimistic, huh? So give the patient time and also chance. Kaya niya i-manage himself. Kahit mild ra ba siya. And there is the delivery of service in the community. If the patient needs to get this, needs counseling, readily available. Minimal disruption, Dok, nag-work mangud ko, integrated into existing services. The doctor is already there. Involve and build community resources. The family is there, the cousins are there, the relatives are there. But the problem is, kung imong pamilya addict, their relatives are all also addict. That's the problem. Participation of Pwood family and the community. There's taking account into the different needs. Doc, di ko kabiya sa trabaho because, or di ko kabiya sa school because I'm still schooling. Close collaboration between sectors, evidence-based intervention. Of course, when we do management approaches, we make sure that it has scientific proof. Involve and voluntary participation, respect for human rights and dignity. We have to respect if the patient says, Doc, I don't want to go to prison. I don't want to be admitted. Okay, let's try the community-based treatment approach. Kay mild raman. Accept relapse as part of the process. So when the patient took another drugs despite having um, having enrolled in the community-based treatment, we support efficacy. Nganong nakatake man ka, you promise that you will not take drugs anymore. What aspect or what is the reason? Why did you fall? Doc, I was not able to resist the temptation. What is that temptation? Niagi manggod ko atong dapit sa may Aurelio, Dok niya. Pag-agi na ako, Dok, nisampit man akong barkada. Wala ko ka-resist because these are my old friends. So, what is your next step? Para di ka relapse so balik. Dili na kumuagi, Dok. Dili na kumuagi sa laing nan. So, muna po niya yung buhaton. Support patient efficacy. So, remember, your community-based drug rehabilitation is only good for mild disorders, huh? Not the severe ones, not the moderate ones. So if they can support self-efficacy, they can think properly, they can make their time, and they can think well of their strategy in order to resist drugs. That's supporting efficacy. If you let them do it on their own ways, no, dili ikaw magbut-buot. This is the rationale of drug abuse management. We have to provide technical support for the people in the community. We have to train healthcare workers. We have to train interventionists. What is the goal of your community-based drug rehabilitation program? Improve and institutionalize the treatment centers in the community. We don't need to pull out that patient. Coherent direction towards general intervention. By general intervention, what do we mean by general intervention? Counseling technique, having the patient or having the family get involved in the treatment process are the core competencies or the core aspect of your community-based treatment. So in community-based treatment, we have to have your core services: case management, psychoeducation, drug testing, counseling, education, employment support, relapse prevention, among and others. See, these are the different entities found in the community. Asa pa man nato i-refer, kundi nara sa ilang baryo, nara silang LGU. Di na nato pangitaon bisag asa. So this is the one from the World Health Organization. If we integrate, this is the model of their community-based treatment approach from the World Health Organization. Wherein if we integrate the patient, as a patient with mild risk or mild substance use disorder in the community, we could get the different or the necessary strategies or services that we can incorporate in the patient's treatment. No? It's all there in the community. Nanay pang HIV testing, nanay TB, nanay check-up, nanay mental health. So we don't need to pull the patient. Yeah, there's continuous monitoring. Kinsa may mag-monitor, mga silingan nga mga chismosa, the marites. Nakit-an lagi nako si kuan nga nigamit na pud to, di ba na-enroll na siya sa CBT? So the healthcare worker would be able to know again, would be able to know and would be able to monitor by just means of the chismis. So what are the guidelines in incorporating community-based drug rehabilitation treatment? First is screen the patient. No screening, do not enroll. After screening, the doctor here would assess kung clinically fit ba ang patient. What if the patient has psychiatric problem? Fit ba siya for community intervention? So the patient should be assessed, thorough history taking, and then the doctor will incorporate or will write something about case management. And then the treatment plan. I would like to enroll patient blah 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 in the community base, refer this patient in the community base. The patient needs treatment for TB because the patient is symptomatic with for 2 weeks having to undergo TB dots. That's treatment planning. Case management is you manage the case, you manage the whole treatment program. When the patient doc or ni adto sa community, doc, gamit bitaw kong drugs, doc, kay I've used drugs again because I was not able to resist the temptation. Okay, you've used the drugs. So what are the next steps that you will do that we're going to plan in order for you to follow it and successfully implement your prevention or their prevention program. Happy to humahuman ha. So screening tests. I have mentioned assist that there are other screening tests. Prevention strategies. We have an individual level or community level intervention. I have mentioned your community-based treatment program. At individual, you can see your patients in the clinic. Kung mild ra, and then you're confident to counsel the patient, you can see your patient in the clinic. Prevention strategies are here. How do we manage relapse? You have to have treatment planning and case management. Sir, ingon ka, ni promise ka that you will not take drugs. How come that you have been taking drugs for the past 1 month? Meaning your different strategies are not effective. So we have to, advise you to admit in a tertiary or a rehabilitation program. So this is the management strategy. If the patient is negative, positive, negative, okay, community-based rata ha. Then the patient follows up in the community base. Uy, nag-positive man ka. Or in your clinic, nag-positive man ka. So what are we going to do? Doc, dili lang ko pa-admit. Okay, dili ka pa-admit but you're having the symptoms already. You're having risky behaviors and you're having untoward behavior, having quarrels with your wife already or hapit nimo mabunog imong asawa. So, do you think we should change your strategy or you should change your plan here? Mm, that's how you support efficacy. So that's case management. Treatment planning is a thorough as treatment. For example, the patient is hypertensive, diabetic. So this is the treatment plan for the patient. Aside from having substance abuse or substance use, what are the other comorbidities of the patient? Treatment planning. But when you say case management, the different step or ingani, case plan, treatment strategy. Kung ibalik ba ang patient o relapse, wala mo follow, the patient did not follow the the strategy that you had agreed with. So dapat agreed with, no? Dili dapat imong pagbuot, dili pod patient's own decision. But you both agreed. Wala mo follow ang patient. So what's the next step? That's case management. Treatment planning, imong suwaton as a doctor. You should be in a community-based rehabilitation treatment. You should take your medicine, blah, 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 the following medicine for hypertension, for diabetes. You should undergo HIV screening. You should undergo TB screening. And then we have counseling service if the patient needs counseling. Cognitive behavioral therapy falls under your group dynamics. So the thing that you did in lifestyle medicine, identifying the triggers, that's cognitive behavioral therapy. Mao na tong usa ka approach. Other interventions are here. And you have a brief intervention when the patient comes into you, kanang kadali lang kaayo. Dok, kanang high blood ko. Yeah, upon interview, manigarilyo ka sir? Yes, doc. Pila man ka sigarilyo? Imong mahurot sa usa ka adlaw, mga 10 sticks, doc. So how will you do a brief intervention? Kabalo ba ka sir nga ang panigarilyo makadaot sa lawas, maka-high blood o makadaot sa baga? Yes, doc, kabalo ko. Okay, since you are now aware na kabalo ka, do you have plan to stop your alcohol? Then you create a cognitive dissonance. Um you create sa term ano, dissonance to your patient. You create that moment when the patient realizes his mistake through brief intervention only. This is very truthful, especially for the mild people or people with mild substance abuse. They could recreate that scenario in their brain. Bitaw no, kung tungod sa kung panigarilyo na high blood ko, what could happen to me if I get stroke or I could have a heart attack? That's your brief intervention as a doctor, 'di ba? So we have the triple A, the 5 A's. Asked, kung manigarilyo ang patient, asked, "Sir, manigarilyo ka?" Assess, kapila man sa usa ka adlaw manigarilyo, sir? Kanang kanapu sa usa ka adlaw. Assist, um, kanapu sa ka adlaw manigarilyo, sir? Kabalo ka nga makadaot na sa lawas, sir? Then we have nalimot ako sa two more A's. And then you set the schedule for the patient. Kung ganahan ka, sir, mo stop kag panigarilyo, balik lang. Let's set a date. And the fifth one is monitor. I forgot the fifth A. Okay. So what is the concept of behavioral change? So giving brief intervention is also incorporating behavioral change. That's the keyword. Ambivalence. Undergo ambivalence. Kinsa may mga psychologists diri be? 'Di ba ambivalence is that it's a thought, it's a discomfort that you create in the patient's mind. And that discomfort could lead to a decision. Bitaw mo stop na kong panigarilyo. Di sa ko mo stop oy, gamay lang sa. So it can lead to a decision right away. So this is ambivalence. Read on that. And how do we monitor? I mentioned in the beginning of the lecture, how do we monitor if the patient progress? When the patient comes back to us, we assess the readiness using the stages of change model. So remember pre-contemplation, contemplation, pre-preparation, action, maintenance. In a short explanation, sir, kabalo ka makadaot ang sigarilyo? Dili, Dok. Wakay plano mo undang, sir? Wala, Dok. So that's the time we discuss brief intervention. Kabalo ba ka makadaot siya sa baga mo na hinungdan nga nung taas imong BP in a mild, in a gentle manner. Mo ni nakapataas imong BP, sir. So naghunahon ang patient, they created ambivalence in their mind. Bitaw no, muhunong ka ko. So there is now contemplation stage. Okay, balik next week, sir. Balik upon your follow-up, BP ta. Sir, taas kaya pong kag BP. Tungod yun sa imong panigarilyo. Dok, muundang na kong panigarilyo. Contemplation. Ganahan ako muundang panigarilyo. Contemplation. Or dok, nakarealize ko nga ang sigarilyo may nahindan na taas akong BP. That's contemplation. Preparation. When are you planning to quit? Ugma na, dok. Set the date. Then the patient comes back. Kumusta imong pag-quit? So far, dok, 2 weeks na wala ko mo sigarilyo. What did you do? Sige ko kuan, dok. I kept myself busy all the time. I kept my hands busy all the time. That's good. That's good. That's supporting efficacy. Then the patient comes back next month. Sir, kumusta? Dok, nakapanigarilyo ko ako kapugong kay namo ko to inom. There's a party. And that's why I was not able to hold up myself. That's relapse. So what are the other things? What are the others? So let's support again. Let's change your case management. Let's improve your case management. So you said that you had a relapse with your cigarette, but how many times? Sir, Doc, nibalik ko tanan, Doc, from the start. So that plan was ineffective. You kept your busy, but still you have tried using your cigarette or your vape. Can we plan another thing? Can we plan another strategy? Or can we put another strategy or can you utilize another strategy? What if Doc magkuan ko? Nicotine replacement therapy. Okay, we have nicotine replacement therapy. Prescribe nicotine replacement therapy. You can also do nicotine replacement therapy. So what keeps the patient from motivated to quit? You have to highlight that. You were motivated to quit because you were persistent with your goal not to smoke because you were busy. Yes. But tungod lang jud atong party, Doc. Okay. So I think getting yourself busy is a good strategy. However, tungod lang sa barkada that you went back to smoking. So what would be the better strategy in order for you not to be not to indulge with your barkada's request or temptation? The patient will and you will have to make strategies for that. Okay? So these are the different strategies that keep on mentioning. So these are the stages of change. So is there hope for drug addict? Yes, there's hope. Or for substance with. Although it's very hard to treat, addiction is complex, treatment is very complex, and it takes time. Sometimes or most of the time, When a patient has stopped taking drugs, we tell them as in remission. They have not yet recovered. Just like your hypertension, if the patient will stop taking drugs or will stop taking a losartan or antihypertensive drug, their hypertension will go back unless they have shifted to behavioral change like exercising, saan nga diet, kaning Mediterranean diet, there's a chance for them not to go back to hypertension. But if they just stop their medications without doing anything, it will relapse. Just like drug use, no? Or drug addiction. It can relapse if you don't take any um if you don't do any strategies. So this is the key principles of treatment. I've said addiction is complex, so treatment is complex. But treatment should be available all the time. That's why CBDRP is the most accessible, most comprehensive way to treat a patient who have mild substance use disorder. Your community-based rehabilitation program or primary care approach or primary perspective approach. It should be individualized. Not all patients are the same. Behavioral intervention is the best treatment. That's why we do brief intervention. Makadaot ba yan na, sir? Kabalo ba kang makadaot na, sir? Diba? As a doctor, you have to do that. Manigarilyo ka? Yes, doc. Yan, wala na follow up. Imo dyan ang patungan og kabalo ba kang makadaot na, sir? Do you know that it's very harmful to your heart, to your lungs, and to your to your blood vessels? Imo dyan ang apilagaan ng approach. Just to create ambivalence. Voluntary or compulsory? Still the same. Then you have to assess for comorbidities. High blood na ka, sir, tungod sa nicotine. Imong nicotine, taas na kayo mong BP tungod sa imong sigarilyo. In summary, substance abuse is actually treatable. Meaning, you can address the problem, but you cannot recover from it. There's no recovery. But you can stop someone. Motivation is change. To change can be influenced by different factors. Look at the different social determinants. Community-based treatment approach employs community approach or model from WHO perspective, primary care perspective. We have to screen all patients using ASSIST. This is the reference of today's lecture. Thank you very much, guys. I will just send the PowerPoint presentation PDF. Salamat.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
Doc. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.